Welcome to the Westcott Crochet channel and welcome to this Tunisian simple stitch coatigan. This is Tunisian crochet, but it's all worked using a regular hook. If there is a written pattern, the link will be in the description box. Another big project to get stuck into and another fabulously cosy result. There's a lot of yarn on this one because I wanted something full length. I used about 2,300 metres on the main body and about 750 metres on the hood and trim. Both were medium to lightweight DK acrylic yarns, which recommended the use of a 4mm hook. I used a 5mm hook throughout the project. I also used a tape measure and a yarn needle. If you enjoyed the tutorial, please give a thumbs up and leave a comment to highlight the video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to support future uploads. You can also follow me on Instagram, and if your account is set to public, do tag at Westcott Crochet on any pictures of your Westcott Crochet projects. Today I'm going to be working a Tunisian crochet stitch. It's a simple stitch and I'm going to be using a regular sized hook. Any regular sized hook will do as long as it's not ergonomic. You've got to be straight so that you can get your stitches on. For those who don't know, Tunisian crochet, normally you'd need a special hook, a long one, or a hook with a wire attached to the end, because the way it works is you pick up loops all the way along the entire width of your work, and then you drop those loops back off again afterwards to create the stitches. So normally you need the long hook or the hook with the wire to collect all of your stitches. With this method, it's called entrelac or entrelac or neither of those pronunciations, but you're basically working in little squares. And I'm working here 10 stitches at a time for 8 rows. The rule is to get the square, however many stitches you work that number of rows minus 2. So as I say, for me, 10 stitches, 8 rows. And you're going to start with one square, and then you'll cut your yarn, rejoin over here, work another square, and another square on top here. Cut your yarn, start again down here, and you'll keep working in steps all the way up. And then once you get the width that you want, you stop adding squares onto the side. And once you get the height that you want, you stop adding your squares on at the top and you just basically stop one short. I'm going to show you how to work the stitch. I just wanted to talk you through it in the first instance. This here, I've worked using a plain white acrylic yarn, which I've actually mixed with 4 different colours of thin cotton yarn. So I've literally just worked the two together, holding the yarns together in conjunction with each other. I'm not going to show you that in the demonstration because to film that it's going to send your eyes a little crazy and you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to be filming in one colour of yarn for each set of steps to show you how that works. So first, as I say, I'll show you how to work the stitch. After that, there'll be some diagrams showing you what panels to work up and how to measure for those. Then there'll be a description on how to join those panels, and then the rest after that. So let's crack on. I'm going to start with a slip knot and a chain up of 10. Chains. Here's the front of the chain with the 2 loops. I'm going to flip it over to the back where I have 1 loop, and I'm going to work those loops. Skipping the first one, I go into the second loop and draw up another loop. Into the third, draw up a loop, fourth, draw up a loop, and so on. Keeping all the loops on the hook. I had 10 chains. Here at the end I should have 10 loops. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So each row is worked in 2 different motions. The first is you pick up all your loops, and the second is you drop them all back off again. So to drop them all back off, I start with 1 initially to form a nice edge stitch, and then 2 at a time all the way back to the beginning. and that's row 1. If you can see, it's more clear after the next row, but if you can see, there are a bunch of vertical bars that have been created with those pull-throughs. I'm going to work into those for the next row. So here's the first vertical bar, and it already has a loop, so that's already worked. The loop that remains on your hook is the start loop for the next row. So into bar number 2, pull back a loop, 3, 4, and so on. For loop number 10, at the end of the row here, here's my vertical loop, and just twist to the side and you can see there's a second loop just behind it, and you want both of those loops for the last stitch, and that creates a nice edge. Okay, so row 2, picked them all up, let's drop them back off again, starting with 1 and then 2 at a time. There we go, and you can see more clearly now, as I say, the vertical bars that have been created that are worked then for the next row. So that's 2 rows, and as you can see, we've got 1, 2 vertical bars. I'm going to work 8 rows, and I'll come back. I have my 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bottom there. The rule is, however many stitches you work that number of rows minus 2, and that should give you a square. So I have 10 stitches and 8 rows. The last thing to do is to close off these open loops at the top here, and you do that by working a slip stitch row. So in through loop number 2 as usual, a starting point, and pull through everything for a slip stitch, and just work 1 slip stitch for every stitch along this top edge. Make sure that you work your slip stitches nice and loose, because you do have to work back into these in the near future. So I do mine in 2 motions, 1, 2, rather than just pulling through everything in one fluid motion, because sometimes that can make it pull too tight. Don't forget the last one. And we're all done. Here, chain at 1, pull that tight to secure, and you can cut your yarn. I'm actually not going to cut my yarn because I'm just working a sample here, and I'm going to unravel it when I'm done. So there's your square number 1. So you do cut and tie off here, and then you join your next square from this point at the bottom. So even if you're not changing colour, you still need to cut and tie and join at the bottom. You'll notice that the square is a bit curly, and they do curl. This Tunisian simple stitch, that's just the nature of the beast. It shouldn't curl too much, and if it is curling much more than this, just let it do its natural curl. If it's curling up and rolling up completely, maybe you've gone too tight. You need to increase your hook size and loosen up your stitches. I did block all of my panels. No special equipment required. I just took an exercise mat, a foam exercise mat, and some sewing pins. I pinned down the bottom edge. It's just the bottom and the top edges that will curl of your entire panel. So I pinned down the bottom edge and used a steam iron. Now I've got acrylic yarn, so you can't touch the yarn with the iron because it will melt. So just hover over and steam, just about an inch above. And I did about, I don't know, 30 seconds maybe. And then I'm impatient, so I dried it with a hairdryer. Again, being careful not to melt my acrylic. And then you take out the pins and it's flat. So I worked up my entire panels first and then I steamed them. But if you're getting to the point where it's curling and it's annoying you while you're working your squares, just pin down your first edge and steam it flat. So that will alleviate your curl there. So as I say, chain 1, cut and start at the bottom. So I'm in with my hook through the bottom corner stitch. It's actually chain number 10 of the bottom row. I'm going to put on my secondary collar. As I say, you don't have to change colour. You can do it all in one if you want, but I've done that. On my actual project, I've changed colour, I think 4 times. Yep, 4 times. But yeah, doesn't matter, it's up to you. So pull through a slip knot and chain 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in a minute, 9. You're unsnagged up. There we go. Again, turn your chain. From loop number 2, start pulling up loops. Making sure you're not twisting your chain. So there I am at the end. Got 9 loops. Make sure that it's not twisted, because sometimes this can twist around. The 10th loop that we need is here at the bottom of the side of this square. In through there. And then to return here, because we're joined onto a square, we don't need to work the edge stitch with the single pull through. So we're just going to pull through 2 every time. And that's the difference. So where for your initial square you chain 10 and work the edge stitch one on its own, for the joining squares you chain out 9 to start, and your 10th stitch is taken from this side of this your next square to join that on. So there we go, that's row number 1. Same thing, pull up your loops. My yarn snagged again. So that should be 9, 3, 6, 9, and number 10 is this guy. And then you're pulling through 2 all the way back. And that's row 2. I'm going to keep going for 8. That should have me at the top working this last stitch as my 10th stitch on the 8th row. I've worked my 8 rows and I've completed my square off by slip stitching across the top. The last slip stitch goes into the first stitch on square number 1, and that then is stitch number 1 for square number 3, which goes across the top here. So into the tops of the stitches, the slip stitches that you work to close off square 1, we draw up loops for square number 3. And that's why your slip stitches need to be nice and loose. At the end, that should be 9, 3, 6, 9, and the 10th stitch is here on the edge of this square. So pick up both loops, and that's number 10. So here again we're creating an edge, so 1 pull through to start, and then 2 at a time. Again, I'm going to work 8 rows, and then I'll come back. I worked my 8 rows and slip stitched across, including the last one. Don't forget the last one. Chain 1, and then you cut your yarn. Starting again over here into this bottom corner, the very last chain of this square. Chain out 9, pull up 9 loops. 10th loop comes from your next square. 8 rows, slip stitched across, and the last slip stitch is into the next square as before. So here again, I'm going to pull up loops on the top of this square. That should be 9, 3, 6, 9. 10th is as before into the corner here. Oops, can't seem to pull that up. There we go. Up the side of this square. So 3, 6, 9, 10. Not making it an edge, so 2 at a time on the return pass. And that's all there is to it. I'll complete 8 rows on here. I'll be back. So that square completed, I've slip stitched across and slip stitched into the corner of next square. As you can see, although the bottom edge is still curling, this top edge is now being held down by these squares. So it literally is only the top and bottom edge that you'll need to block. You know what I'm going to say next. Basically, I'm going to work another square on top of this one by pulling up loops across the top of this square, including the last one round the corner here, and then work another 8 rows. 9 loops pulled up. Here is number 10. Working an edge, so dropping off 1 to start and then 2 at a time. I'll see you in 8 rows. With that square finished, this is what we have. It's what it looks like. And you're basically just working up in steps each time. When you get the width that you need, you stop adding to this side. You stop adding your first square here. Your first square will start here. And as normal, you'd pull up your loops and work your square. Pull up your loops, work your square. And when you've got the height that you want, you stop adding squares to the top. And your last stitch would be the slip stitch into here as you finish off this square, and then you chain 1 and cut. I'm going to finish off the square just for closure and show you what it looks like. So that concludes the sample square. I added the 2 cream squares to stop adding width. I started on top of the red square instead of the side. To stop adding height, I stopped here before adding the last square on. So that finishes off the height and the width at the same time. If I still wanted to add height, I would have put the extra square on the top and then keep going in that way and just keep working steps. So let's talk about panels. Starting with the back panel, we need to determine the width of that back panel. So measure all the way around the widest part of your body and divide that measurement by 2. Your back panel needs to be at least that half measurement. If you want a looser fit or you want to overlap a little in the front, then add an extra centimetres to allow for that. Once you've determined the width of your back panel, you need to work as closely towards that measurement whilst maintaining an equal number of squares across your width. The 2 centre squares will be left open for the neck, should be about 12 centimetres. Then count your squares on either side of that neck opening, because that's going to determine the width of your front panels. For your 2 sleeve panels, the width of your actual panel determines the length of your sleeve, whilst the height of your panel should be however wide you want your sleeve to be, times 2. You will also need 2 pocket patches, the width of which must not be greater than the width of the front panels, and the height should equal the gap you wish to leave for your pocket, plus at least 1 extra square to create depth. My pockets were 3 squares for the opening and an extra one at the bottom for the depth. Once you have all your panels, you then need to join them. Start by working a seam across the top of each shoulder, remembering to work on the wrong side or inside if you're working a visible seam. Next, fold your sleeve and work a seam to join the 2 sides of the length. Start from the cuff end if you intend to keep your yarn attached for the next stage. Next, we need to attach the sleeve to the body by working up the front panel, over the shoulder and down the back panel. With your sleeve attached, continue your seam down the length of the body, joining front to back, and stop at the point where you want your pocket opening to be. Okay, I have worked a seam across the top of the shoulder. I started at the cuff end of my sleeve and worked a seam on the underarm, then up to the shoulder around the arm opening, down the back, attaching the sleeve, and then down the side here, down to where my pocket is due to start. I've just zoomed into the part where I'm going to leave an opening for a pocket. I have sealed up 7 squares, joining front to back at the side. This is 8, 9 and 10, and I'm going to leave those open for the pocket. Here's my pocket, and it is 3 squares wide, and I've gone 4 squares deep. So as I just said, I'm leaving 3 squares open for the pocket, and then there's a bottom square just to create a little bit of depth. So at this point, I need to stop joining the front to the back and join the back to the pocket. Whoops, get that out of the way. And keep working my seam down for these 3 squares. I've just turned myself around, so I'm upside down. This is the back panel. I've just turned the side of it inwards so that I can join my pocket on these 3 squares. I'm working a mattress stitch, as I've done with all my seams. I wanted a flat seam because it's quite a bulky fabric, so I didn't want a bulky seam as well. So at the bottom of the last square that I've just joined for the side, I'm going to add on my pocket square in the corner there and thread that through. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see. So here we are for the mattress stitch. I go up through 1 stitch, I go over to the other side and go up through the stitch on that side, and then just pull it up through the next one on the other side, up through the next one on the opposite side, and just pull it taut. So pulling it taut but not so tight that it puckers. And I'm just going to work that way the whole way down, making sure I'm matching stitch for stitch, that way my squares all line up. And I'll be back when I've done 1, 2, 3 squares. Okay, I'm 3 squares joined, and this one's just flapping in the breeze for now. I have now a pocket attached to the back. At this point, I'm going to reintroduce the front panel, and I'm going to carry on my seam down the side, and I'm now ditching this final pocket square, this little bit here. I'm going to ignore that for now and join the front to the back, all the way down to the bottom. I've worked my seam all the way down to the end. So now I have a full side seam, minus these 3 squares, which I've left open for a pocket, and the pocket is attached on the back. I now need to attach it on the inside to the front. Okay, I've just opened it up so you can see this is the front panel, this is the pocket flap, and this is the back. So it's attached to the back, and I need to attach it to the front. So I'm going to do that by sewing on the inside down this last square that I left open from before, across the bottom, up the side, and across the top. I've just wrangled myself into position so that hopefully you can see what I'm doing. It's kind of huge now, so it's difficult to work on the table. I've attached my yarn with a simple knot. I'm just at the bottom of the pocket here, the little square row that I left open. And I'm going to attach using the stitches around the pocket square, or pocket rectangle as it is. And I'm going to just pick up a couple of loops on the front panel, making sure that I don't go all the way through so you can't see the stitch on the other side. I'm just going to pick up some loops here on the back, all the way around where my square sits, or again, rectangle sits. So here we go. Just move that to the inside, grab some loops there. If you can see, am I too low down? I probably am. There we go. So a couple of loops on the front panel, stitch on the pocket and pull through. And I'm going to just whip stitch on this one. So again, I'm trying to match stitch for stitch so that I'm joining square to square, but just as best you can. You might have to work a couple twice if you've not lined up perfectly, but that's not a problem. And I'm just going to whip stitch my way all the way around, making sure, as I say, that nothing's visible on this front side. We're back when I've finished. Okay, I've worked all the way around. So now my pocket is attached on all four sides. So from the inside, nothing is open, but from the outside, there's a way in. Fun story. I already worked pocket number 1 before I went ahead and worked pocket number 2. And I worked pocket number 2 one square lower down than I had pocket number 1. So I had that whole thing to pick out and put back in again. So there you go. Make sure you put your pockets in the same place. So instead of having squares 8, 9 and 10 open for my pocket, I actually had 7, 8, 9. Okay, on to the next stage. I've inserted my hook down in this bottom corner, right at the edge, and I'm going to work a row of single crochet all the way around. I'm just going to spin upside down so that I can do that. I'm upside down now, so I'm just going to, I've changed colour, add on a slip knot in my new colour. I'm still on the 5mm hook. I'm going to pull a slip knot through that bottom corner stitch and chain 1. I'm working with my work face towards me because I want the stitches to face this direction. Into that same stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet. I'm just going to work my tail end as I go. Next one, single crochet, and the same all the way around this bottom edge. We're back when I get to the other side. Just come back to my sample square so that I can demonstrate the ribbing in a colour that you can actually see. I've worked across the top in a row of single crochet, and I'm going to start on the ribbing next, the alternating front post, back post, double crochet. To start, I can have either a chain 3 as a double crochet substitute for that first stitch and turn my work, or I can unravel that and work a standing double crochet. So I turn around, I pull up my loop to the height of a double crochet, plant my finger on the loop to hold it still, wrap the loop around my hook, so I've got 2 loops. I go in through the stitch, I pull back a loop, and I've got 3 loops, keeping hold of that loop on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, I can let go now, yarn over and pull through the last 2. And that's the standing double. So next I'm going to work double crochets around these single crochet posts, and I'm going to alternate back post, front post. So to do that, I yarn over for a double, I come up, back to front, down, front to back around the post, yarn over, pull back a loop, and work a double crochet. Pull through 2, pull through 2. So that was up and then down, so now I'm going to go down and up around the post and double crochet. Up and down, down and up, and keep going, alternating all the way along. To finish this row, I'm going to work around the last post, and then I'm going to put a double crochet in the last stitch, just in the top of there. And that's that. So for the next row, you're either going to chain 3 and turn, and that's your first stitch, or work a standing double again. So up for the standing double, in through the top of the stitch, and work the stitch. And then we're going to work back post, front post again, and wherever we have a post that's sitting backwards, I'm going to push it back. Wherever I have a post that's sitting forwards, I'm going to push it forwards and carry on the same pattern. So back, front, front all the way along. And that just extends the ridges upwards. So here again at the end, I'm going to work around the last post, the penultimate post, I guess. And in the last stitch, or your chain 3, the top of your chain 3, if you were chaining 3, work a last double crochet. So I keep going with that now to get the length that I want. So again, either chain 3 and turn or standing double. And just keep following the pattern. Push them forward if they're pushed forward, push them back if they were pushed back already. And just keep extending your ridge pattern each row. I'm going to put a few rows onto here and just show you what it looks like, and I'll come back. So that's how the ribbing looks after just 4 rows. I think I worked 10 on my actual project. So keep going to get the length that you want. It also actually stops the curling a little bit on the Tunisian stitches. It stopped rolling up on itself, but I did still block mine anyway, just to be on the safe side. I worked 10 rows on the bottom band, and it looks like this, that you can see. I'm going to now work the hood around the top. So here at the top, this is the neck opening, and I'm going to work the hood section next. I'm going to start here, the bottom of this top square on the front. I'm going to work up the side of this top square, across the tops of the 2 back squares, down the side of this top front square. And I'm going to stop here at the bottom of this top front square. So I'm going to do exactly the same ribbing pattern, so I'm not going to demonstrate that again. It's exactly the same as I've worked for the bottom, except on the first round, the single crochet round, I'm going to put 2 single crochets in every 1 stitch. So doubling up all the way around. From there, back post, front post, double crochet in rows as normal until I get the length that I want. And the length that I want, I need to clear the top of my head. I'll be back when I've done that so you can see what that looks like. I've worked my hood up to the height that I need. I'm not sure how many rows it is, I haven't counted, but it's about 30 centimeters. So measure it on yourself, because I've got quite a big head, so you might need less. So try it for yourself and see what looks right. And just to let you know, we're joining along the top here, so it's kind of that is your hood opening. It doesn't have the depth in full as yet. I'm going to do that next, but that's just to give you the height that you need. So next I'm going to fold this so that the 2 edges, the 2 top edges are touching. So that's the top. I'm folding it in half and I'm working a seam on the inside along this top edge. I'm just going to zoom in to do that. Okay, so here I am at this top edge. I'm going to join these 2 sides. Apologies again for the dark yarn. I keep choosing these dark yarns and forgetting they don't film very well. So sorry about that. I'm going to try and talk through it so you can hear what I'm doing if you can't see what I'm doing. I've got my yarn still attached. I'm going to go in through the corner stitch on both sides. I'm going to pop my hook back on. My loop back on. And then I'm going to pull that loop through the 2 stitches. So that's number 1. I just chain 1 to secure that. Then I go to the next stitch, in through that side and through the other side, and slip stitch. And that's literally all I'm doing. Top of each stitch, both sides, yarn over, pull through everything to slip stitch. Not too tight on the slip stitches because you don't want to pucker your seam. Just nice and loose so that it closes the seam but doesn't pull it in. So I'm going to do that the whole way across, and then I'll tell you what we do next. So that's me all seamed up at the top. Chain 1 to secure that, and I can cut my yarn. Can't just now, haven't got my scissors, but I will in a minute. So that's the first stage of the hood. The second stage, comes with a front edge at the same time. So I'll show you how to do that. So for this next stage, I'm going to start right down at the bottom where I work the bottom ribbing, and it's going to be yet more ribbing. I'm starting with a row of single crochet all the way around, up the front, around the hood, and back down the other side, back down to here. So the only difference again is this bit of the single crochet row, because I'm going to be working single crochets into the side of double crochets, and same thing for the hood as well. So all around the edge of the hood it's going to be single crochets around, in the sides of the double crochet row. So I'm going to show you how that works and then just crack on and do that. So to begin the side ribbing, I'm back on my sample square again, and I'm going to, I've chained one at the end here. If you're joining a yarn, you're joining it back into this corner stitch, and I've chained one already, so my yarn's already built up. So if you're joining into the corner stitch, join with a slip knot and chain one to build up your yarn. I'm going to put one stitch right into this very corner here to start things off. So I'm going to pick up a couple of loops down there and single crochet, and then I'm on to double crochets, and I'm going to put stitches, 2 stitches into the side of each. So I'm going to start in the middle. So here's the next double crochet. I'm going to go right for the middle, pick up a couple of loops and single crochet, and then where the 2 stitches join, I'm going to put one in there. Next double crochet, aim for the middle, and where the stitches join, another one in there. And the same all the way up, and just work that 2 in each arrangement. So here at the end, that was the last double crochet. I had 4 rows, as I said, of my ribbing on this sample piece, and I've got 8 stitches, single crochets. Don't forget that you've got a single crochet here, which you started the ribbing with. So put another stitch into the side of there, and then you're on to your regular stitches up the side of your pattern. So 1 in each for those. And then you work your ribbing as normal once you've made your way all the way around with your single crochets. You start the back loop, back post, front post, double crochets to work the ribbing. And back, I worked 10 rounds on the front ribbing, which also extends the hood all the way around. That's what this looks like. You can't really see it here. You can see better on the photographs at the beginning and the end. It's too big to get on camera here. The last thing to do is to add some cuffs. Again, yet more ribbing, but this time worked in the round, so I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just going to demonstrate how I work the ribbing in a round. So I've just borrowed from another project that I've started. This is actually going to be a covering for a footstool, and I've just seamed up part of it here to show you how to work in a round. You'll notice these squares are slightly larger. I've worked 15 stitches for 13 rows, but it's exactly the same thing otherwise. So there's lots of tail ends hanging about because I don't actually need to weave these in because they'll all be on the inside for the footstool, but just ignore those. So here's my yarn attached. I've chained up 1. I'm going to work a single crochet in that same stitch, and then single crochet all the way around this outside edge, just the same as before when you're not working in a round. So 1 stitch in each all the way around. I've worked my round of single crochets. Normally to close a round I'd slip stitch into the first stitch, which is there. I'll just do that to show you. But in doing so, my initial stitch looks like 2 posts, which makes it complicated then when I'm coming to do the next round because I'm working around the posts. It's actually the slip stitch I joined with and then the single crochet that I started with. So what I'm actually going to do is slip stitch into the second stitch, and then that pulls those 2 together as one post rather than making it look like two. Okay, for the next round I'm going to turn, and either you're going to chain 3, and that's your first double crochet, which would be in place of, from the front it's going to look like a back post, or work a standing double, which is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to work a front post because I'm on the back, and from the other side it's going to look like a back post. So front post around there would be standing double. As I turn it around, you see it's pulling that post back. Next is going to be a back post in the sequence, sorry, just back out there. And then a front post, and back post, and so on. All the way around as standard. We're back when I get to the beginning. That's me all the way around. I'm back at the beginning, and I'm working with an even number of stitches, which you should have because you're working 2 halves of a sleeve, so it should be the same number of stitches on either half, which creates an even number. So I'm joining a back post to a front post, which is my first stitch. So I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of that stitch to close off that round. Then I'm going to turn around and go back the other way. So again, you're either chaining 3 and working a front post around what is already a front post stitch, back post, front post, back post, or you're going to standing double, back post around this first stitch right here, and then carry on front back, front back, front back, all the way around. When you get round to the beginning, slip stitch into stitch number 1, turn around and do it all again. So here at the end of round 2 of the ribbing, again I'm going to slip stitch into the top of my first stitch, or the third chain if you chain 3. I'm going to turn around and start all over again from the inside. Just keep going for as many rounds as you want for the length of cuff that you want. At the end, slip stitch into your first stitch again, chain 1 and cut your yarn. For my actual sleeve, I worked 9 rounds of ribbing, and I've cut off and weaved in the end. Once you're done with one sleeve, pop another cuff on the other, and then you're done. If you do all of that, you'll end up with something like this. Do let me know how you got on in the comment section. Thanks to everyone out there who's supporting the channel, and thanks so much for watching today.